Hello and welcome everyone. I am Sachlin Singh. I'm the host for today. The arena starts in around 10 seconds. We have 8 players who've joined in and the games start soon. Let's go. The games should be live in any moment. And let's start with a beautiful English opening. Really interesting. Again. And the whole arena is 5+3. And we can actually take a look at all the systems once again, and a few moves have been made here. Starting with e4, c6, the Carcan defense, d4, knight c3, d4, knight, e4, knight f6, bishop b3, deviating from the main line a little. And queen takes d4 has been seen. Very interesting, actually, because knight g3 is usually the main move. After knight takes e4, knight f6, knight g3 is usually the main move. Very interesting, and we'll come back to this. Let's look at the other game that has started. Let's start from the opening again. d4, d5, c4, knight f6. Going into the Slav. And a very closed, non-confrontational opening until black went in with e5, d5, knight e5, and massive exchanges in the center with c takes d5, knight takes d3, queen takes d3, knight takes d5, and within 3 moves, a lot of pieces. So 2 pawns and 1 minor pieces have been swapped out, with potential for more after something like bishop g3. Oh, and that's a blunder. Knight takes, threatening the queen, so that has to be taken. And then the tactic here is knight takes c3, and if knight takes c3, there's this takes, and if there's an intermezzo of queen takes, then you basically take another piece with check. I think this tactic still works. Very interestingly, let's go back here with a very nice position that after 12 moves from both the sides, pawns have not been exchanged, or even a single pair, so no exchanges after 12 moves. And the position favors white a little bit due to the space advantage, as seen here, and maybe h4, h5 can be incoming. Very interesting. Let's look into our Caro-Kann game. After knight f3, a few moves have been made. Queen d8, castle kingside, bishop g4 pinning the knight, rook e1, knight takes e4, rook takes e4, and bishop f5. Rook d4 was played, bishop d7, knight e5, and suddenly black's position seems a little problematic because the development of these pieces right here, there's literally no development of these 3 pieces, and it will at least require black 3 more moves to castle. So something like g6 or e6 with bishop g7 or bishop e7, or maybe even bishop d6, but which is a little awful because anytime you can actually like play something more like bishop e2 and start an attack on the d6 square. So very likely g6, bishop g7, and castle kingside, but this knight suddenly requires a few more moves to come back into the game. Let's go back in here and see if black actually found that tactic. So bishop takes c3, e takes f5, bishop takes b2, rook d1, bishop g7, queen b3, dropping a full piece. After rook takes e2, queen takes b7, black is clearly better. Let's go back here. And finally, after 13 moves, on the 14th move, we see an exchange of pieces, and then we see on the 15th move, white swapping another pair of pawns. Very interesting here. I think there are a few options again for white to play for. I think you really want to plant your knight on one of these squares, and then you want to kind of break and then fix your knight. So sometimes you really want to get like either this push, and if it like at some point basically d4 c5, and if pushes you just want to plank the knight there. But at this point, knight b5 is interesting. So the rook's attacked right here and knight's attacked. So the question white's really asking is that where do you exactly want to put your rook? So if the rook goes to any of these squares, puzzle rush time, guys. Knight b7, forking the rook and the queen, and which leads to the loss of an exchange. And if rook a4, you can definitely play interestingly something like knight f3 maybe, or even, well, we'll have to check with the evaluations. We'll see what does white play after rook a4. That's a good question, but we'll come back to this. There's only 3 games going on right now. Let's look at this. After last move, white played bishop f4, queen b6, bishop e2, rerouting the bishop. Bishop e2, bishop e6. Black's position still seems in shambles because the king safety is a problem, especially when the king has not castled either side yet. And I think castling queenside would anyway be difficult. So assuming only castling the king towards king side would be g6, bishop g7. So that's a plan for black. But white might just very quickly play queen d2, rook d1, and then start attacking on the on the d8 square. Again, exchanging pieces here is not something that I would definitely recommend, especially after takes. Yes, you do force the queen to like another passive square, but that doesn't really get you anything. In fact, somehow trying to get into these positions. Also, this bishop basically stops this pawn from going ahead. So I don't really want this good bishop to actually be exchanged. Instead, I would rather put it somewhere like I would rather play like b3 or something, or even sack the pawn maybe, and just go for queen d2, rook d1, and then start asking questions to black about the king safety. Times are dropping low, so let's move. And there have been multiple moves played here, and I think mate is incoming really quickly. And the first game has been decided. Very interesting. So what happened here was that white somehow came back into the position, but then totally blundered the checkmate. So let's get back. There is another game that's starting really quickly, so we'll add that to the list. And let's go back. This seems interesting with white an additional pair of pawns and a bishop. So this is really hard for black to defend with an active bishop and almost no kingside problems. So black really needs to find something here to go on, and white having an outside passer just doesn't really help. So keeping the queens on the board may be one right choice that black makes. Let's go here, and not a lot has been played, and I assume these players are going to go into a lot of time pressure. So after bishop c4, c5 was played after a long think of 1 minute and 15 seconds in a 5-minute game, which is very interesting. And also then a very another another think of 17 seconds, another think of 47 seconds. Both the players almost under a minute. And white getting a little more impatient than usual. And I think bishop takes e5, and it's almost equal. It's almost equal after queen takes e6. The position is almost equal, as all of these pieces were actually asking questions towards the king's safety. With bishop b7, there's still this really nice threat. With rook to d8 check, rook takes d8, queen takes d8 mate. So that is the threat and the question that white is asking. Let's go here. It started with e4 c5. A Sicilian of some kind. It says an old variation, and black was able to actually win a free rook. So that should basically define a lot. Let's look at here. Blunders happening, and queen c8 takes, and okay, it's still two pieces. So a rook and a bishop for a queen, not that bad. Black can still kind of defend this, but after queen takes b7, I think it's a little edge to white. With 15 seconds on the clock for black, it might become a little bit more difficult. It's very, very important. Okay, rook d7. I'm not really happy with this, but rook d1 can still be met with king e7. Interestingly. And it also forces the other rook, which is on h1, out to one of these squares. So, not these actually, but it allows you to basically put your rook, the other rook, on d8. All right. Let's go ahead and see. Right. And yep. And this game has already ended. Let's go. And there's another game that has started. We'll look here. This game has piqued my interest actually. So queen c4 and white won on time. Interesting stuff again. We're getting to watch black clearly winning in this position. So the last time we were here, bishop takes h1 was played, knight c3, knight takes d4, losing another pawn. Bishop b5 check, knight takes b5, knight takes b5, queen b6, queen e2, bishop a3, trying to make things difficult for black here, but we'll see. After this, knight has to retreat to one of these squares, and that's just easy. Okay, so let's hold on. I have to. Okay, so the games that are going on. Alright, so let's start with this. Knight f3, d5, and we see a king's fianchetto opening, more like a king with knight c4, and white here has the bishop pair, black has the f file to themselves. But with knight coming to c5, black should really start asking questions to white about these weak pawns. Now the question is, how do you start asking? So either the real question is, do you go a4, a5, or do you go a6? I'm sorry, do you go a6 or do you go a5? And then do you go with the idea of a6, b5, and takes, and then let's say takes, or do you start rerouting your knights back with something like rook f7, queen d8, or in fact even rook f7, the knight goes here and comes to g6 to defend this whole pawn push. So those are the questions to be asked. And I think there's another chance to probably go knight here, and then maybe knight here and here, then coming back to f7. or actually queen e7, and then this knight actually going to f7. So there's multiple ideas. Again, that can be seen. Okay, let's look at this game. Started with the Caro-Kann advanced variation, and black basically trying to hammer on the d4 pawn, and with a4, massive exchanges on the d4 square. I think black ended up winning a pawn. This might have compensation for it is the question. Although black was behind in development, but you give black a couple of moves. So in here, I think black is behind development. But you give black a couple of moves, and suddenly black castles, and then there's this black is really solid with no ability of white to actually ask questions. So white really needs to find a plan going on forward. With good 3.5 minutes on the clock, white can actually take some time to actually go through it. Let's go and check. Do we have more games going on? With this, black seems to have lost his queen somehow. And with knight d4, completely missing a free queen. And both the players missing knight takes a8 multiple times. Okay, and I think black is better again after a few up and down moves. Let's go back to this game. It's a very strategic game where white is able to put a pawn on h6, and that will actually be a problem. So the plan that black has tried to do is put the queen on e7, the rook on f7, and then another rook on f8, I guess. It still seems quite solid. So now the question still remains is that at what time do you want to play f4, and then you want to break up on the center? And will that actually undouble the pawns, allow the move like e5, and then also what other options does it give black to put the knight in? Because this bishop on g2 is currently really bad, with it being actually blocked by its own pawns. f4 has been played. Very interesting. F4 has been played. Let's go back here, and black has spun white into a ladder mate. That's solved for now. Let's go to the game with the Caro-Kann. White doing okay, but still a pawn down with actually the bishop pair. So we need to see how white can use this bishop pair to maybe negate that extra pawn advantage. The sad part for white is that there's no way to stop d4. The good thing for white is that there is maybe a defense for this e5 with bishop h2, f4. But that's the only thing, because this pawn is almost lost. I think with queen b8, black can claim that I am attacking this pawn thrice, and where's the defense? Okay, there's 2 more games that have started, which is very interesting. Let's look at this. Okay, so a few moves have been played. Let's start from e4, c6. We're seeing a lot of Caro-Kann today, and okay. Very interesting. An exchange variation this time, and both the players trying to put pieces in the center, and the center is completely clogged with this really nice pawn structure. Let's look at if there's another game going on. Okay, we start seeing exchanges with knight takes e5, knight takes e5, and I assume there will be bishop takes e5, bishop takes e5, d takes e5, and then at some point white will choose to go f4. Let's Let's switch to this game and black. Very interestingly, queen b8 was played with queen d6, bishop f8. Very interesting. And after takes, this knight still comes back, and once this bishop goes to g7, I'm sorry, my arrows, g7, and the knight comes back. The question is then being asked to this e5 pawn, who are your defenders? Okay, it tries to break, but now suddenly this pawn is really loose, and this pawn will be claimed by black. 2-pawn advantage with a passer in the middle of the board. It's too difficult for white to actually play from here. Let's look at this. In fact, white chose to take with d takes e5 after knight takes e5. Knight takes e5, d takes e5, and then knight c5. Very interesting. Forking the bishop and the queen. Only move? Queen c2? Or queen d1 actually. Both of them work. Both of them do the same thing. The question is which one to be played. Or is there an idea of bishop b5? Is there a tactic hanging in the background? With queen takes, and then you have the Swishenzook and taking back. Not sure. Might be. So there's 3 candidate moves right now that white has to choose from: bishop b5, bishop queen c2, and queen d1. Let's see what they pick. Let's go back to this game. So this pawn is definitely lost. But what white is trying to do is takes, and then try to push this pawn. But again, I still think just taking here is too easy. And there's nothing that white can do to defend that. And the sad part is that if you go bishop c1, the bishop basically becomes too weak, and this bishop pins this bishop to the defense of this b2 pawn, and this bishop can still move freely. And then even here you can choose to take, and then just move your king up. Not really, because there's 2 lasers down here. Not anymore. In fact, now king h7. So takes and king h7 seems very likely. But also the knights are tricky, so you really want to like beware of like something like this. Although both of these like checking squares are yet being controlled even by the bishop and then also by the pawn. But the 3 passes in the middle of the board is just too difficult for white to go on from here. Time's falling low. With bishop d5, I think black has blundered an exchange, very interestingly. And it's a very common theme against this whole Kensington type setup. In fact, I have blundered almost this exact same position against this exact same player, where I did put the rook and the king. So I think at some point king h8 is just a good move to play. But this bishop comes in really handy with this, pinning this. Okay, and bishop e3. H1. There was something better. There was definitely something better that was missed. And now takes, and then again takes, and another pair of pieces have been swapped. I'm wondering what exactly could have been played instead of king h1. It says it's almost winning. Is it king h2? And why is what's better here? Okay, queen d5. And white is up an exchange. Let's go back. Very interesting position here that I see. Okay, a5, very interesting. So black still needs to, what black just needs to do is somehow swap a pair of the bishops and then just start pushing these 3 pawns. Or in fact, swap a pair of knights. I'm sorry, a knight with a bishop, and then you're just like cruising. In fact, here knight g6 with the threat of f4 check, coming in with e5 either. I think just super easy. The black bishop, white's black bishop really wants to stick on this diagonal, but in fact d4 is even better. So d4 starting to push this pawn down, and I think there's no way to stop this with d3, bishop d2 maybe, and then you go knight here. In fact, d3, bishop d1, and then knight c4 is even better. What ended up winning? Let's go to the arena qualifiers. And let's see. A new game has started. Let's look at it. Very interesting. Started with an e4, f6. And massive exchanges in the center. Wow. Wow. Massive exchanges in the center. Okay, this is very close. Black winning this with a pawn on d2. The only way to stop this is to actually resign, because king... Oh, now king g. Yeah, you just put the bishop here. Start pushing these pawns. I mean, that works too. Put the bishop there. Yep. King g5. Start pushing these pawns. Yep. King g5. Pawn pushes. Wins easy. Okay, that's it. That should be it. e4. Yep. Just these pawns trot all over white's space and white's king. And this bishop feels so helpless right now, because it's starting to come in where the f3 check is coming in very quickly, followed by this king rerouting itself, or not even that now, with e3, and then just e2 checkmate. And here king takes d3 is a blunder, because then you render white into stalemate. So the way to win this, I would suggest, is e2 takes, and then you go ahead and basically win these pawns and queen these. That can be done. And then you can also just like play ring around the rosy with these kings. Oh, but this is bad, because you just make a queen and then maybe make another queen, then checkmate, or do this and queen b2 checkmate, or that. Another beautiful checkmate. Let's go back to this. Few seconds left on the clock with beautiful blocked positions. And now I think rook c3 will be played with almost a drawn in game. With rook takes c3, b takes c3, I think there's a chance. But if white allows rook c2, it's going to be a little difficult. Let's see. Game has already ended. Hold on, I need to really look at it. All right, we're back. Excuse me. With another, excuse me, another English. With a very interesting position this time. Where white gets to castle, and then black controls the center, not completely, because at some point white wants to go for either the e4 push or the e3 d4 push. Both of them seem like okay-ish, but it has to be you have to really pick what exactly do you want to go and play for. Very interesting again. Let's look at this. This game suddenly seems... So at this point, I think black was doing really okay, and white allowed rook c2, and it really costed white at least a good 4 pawns, 5 in fact. So a 5v1 with an extra rook it's just too difficult for black to even handle this. I'm sorry, white to even handle this. It should be it's easy to resign at this point. Okay, and white won by checkmate. Interesting cut. And with multiple, yes. So white was already doing way better here. And with both the rooks teaming up against the king in a ladder checkmate. That was really close. Alright, so d3 maybe here. Another game has started, guys. Let's take a look at this. And we're looking into another Sicilian with Queen e2. Third move, Queen e2. I'm not sure if this is a book move, but Queen e2. Interesting. Is this amazing prep? I do not know. After takes, castles. Interesting. And black somehow trying to challenge the center, conceding e5, knight e8. And putting the bishop on e6, which is quite awkward, and then also playing f6, which is asking the question if ef6, maybe that bishop can be moved somewhere with some kind of discoveries. The only downside about the whole of this is that white's king is not castled, so I might assume at some point queen b4 and some sort of these threats are very legible. Again, these pawns are in limbo, so at some point I think takes and takes can also be played. These are questions, and I guess good questions to ask. Right, black winning that game as predicted. Let's go and check what else is on. d4 has been played. And the game was abandoned. Interesting. Okay, so a calm game for the first time, and not a lot of moves being played with bishop g4, the Jutko piano, and knight f6. Very interesting response with d4. d4 being played. Very interesting. Is it going to be d4 e takes d4? Instead, black chose to respond with d5 e takes d5, knight takes d5. Again, major exchanges in the center, and will white choose to go takes as they're simply winning a pawn? Or is there some kind of queen e7 or queen e7 ideas here? But bishop b4 check first. What happens to c3? I have no idea. But maybe c3 is a move, and then here, and I might actually want to go b4 myself. But let's see. Let's take a look at the games that are present. There's 3 games going on. Very close. One of these is very equal. Actually, let's take a look at it. We did see what questions does black want to ask, and here black chose to actually go back. Queen c7, knight c5, threatening the bishop on e6, and I assume c8 is a little passive. I would rather put it somewhere around f7 because I still want to put it on this diagonal, and at some point I will bring it back, but maybe c8, excuse me. And after bishop c8, castle king side, f takes e5, knight takes e5. And I think there will be major exchanges in the center, opening this bishop, this rook's x-ray attack on this pawn. This knight is only defended once with this pawn, but there's an x-ray defense. There's an x-ray defense from here, but still defended once, attacked thrice, which is interesting to see. With which piece does black actually choose to take from? Very sure the queen takes e5 runs into this, but bishop takes e5. Very interesting again, because bishop takes e5, knight takes e5. Bishop takes e5, d takes e5, knight takes e5, or queen takes e5. Very interesting again. I am not sure again because of this, because again this bishop was defending the king really nicely. And exchanging that bishop, I don't really like it, especially if I can go something like queen d2 and I can put the bishop on h6. And then at some point I can always make use of this diagonal to give you checkmate threats. But it's still interesting. Let's go into this. There have been some moves played since we last checked it. So here, from here, knight g5, bishop f5, e4, d4, knight e4, knight takes e4. Major exchanges again on the center. And black chose to play knight d4, knight c5, b takes c5, bishop takes c5, b takes c5, and rook d8. Sorry, rook fd8, threatening this d3 pawn. And here rook e1 was played with f6, f4, and queen c7. And f takes e5 was played after a relatively short think. But here, there was, after 25 seconds of think, black played bishop e4, but there was definitely a chance to go ahead and play something more interesting. And I assume it probably was c6. I'm not sure. I would assume at this point c6 is a very, I don't know, maybe takes, then what, take back? I don't know. But, oh, is it hold on. Okay, here, is it c6? Yep, it might be c6. I'm not sure, because if knight takes c6, you have bishop takes e5, and then you can always play d4. So that might be a good option. I'm not sure. But anyway, so exchanging, and then black played queen d7 exchanging, offering the exchange of queens, and we'll see what happens there. And black played king g7 and resigned. That's interesting. Hold on. And resigned. I think he was worried about this, but then knight takes is. Oh no. What's the move here? That's a question. King g7 lines and bishop f4. I still don't see it. I mean, this at the 1385 level, I still don't see a reason why black just resigned. I mean, never resigned. Play till the end. There's another game that has started. No, hasn't started yet. Let's quickly refresh the page. Really want to watch this one. Okay. So low timings on this one, and white is actually getting into black's position and asking questions. How do you intend to defend this b7 pawn? And black responds with queen f5, threatening this c5 pawn first. And then maybe go on to somehow put pressure on this d3 and a3 pawns right here. So it's very interesting at this point, with both the players around a minute. Here, very interesting. Again, let's look at this. Things have changed. I'm not sure through this. Oh yeah, a relatively nice Jugo piano, but with c3 and not actually taking back. Takes, massive exchanges, and just losing a couple of pieces in the meantime. Chopping a pair of rooks, losing another piece, and yes, this is curtains for black. Let's go back here. Both the players are in time trouble and have actually swapped another pair of pawns, equal pawns. Equal major pieces is a major piece ending. Same pawn structure should be theoretically draw. Both the players playing in under a minute, white playing in under 30 seconds. Black playing with around 45 seconds on the clock. Very interesting again at this point. If black wins, I think gets a streak soon. And let's really nicely take a look at what are the options. What exactly do you want to play? Do you want to play something like Rook f7 has been played. Very interesting. That game has ended as predicted. And Rook f7 seemed to be a blunder. White played Queen e6. Rook f5. 12 seconds on the clock for White. And takes, I guess? And it seems to be very equal-ish. And Rook e7, that is really disturbing. Although White at least has a draw in hand with Rook g7, Rook h7, Rook g7, Rook h7, and if Black blunders, it might go into Rook takes it. Okay, and now I think Rook g5 is a move. Okay, King g8, very interesting. Rook. And Black playing with, so the 5+3 actually gives a little advantage. Now is interesting. Oh, okay. And is that oh, that was a laddered mate, blundered maiden one. Okay, let's look into this game. Seems very interesting. Let's start with this was another Sicilian that we see, and after knight takes, h6 and castles kingside. And White has started pressing with this f4, f5, and if takes is actually bad. So the question White is basically asking Black is that if you take, I'm really happy because I can also start taking here. Bishop takes c3 is, I don't really like this move, especially because after b takes c3, I'm still threatening bishop takes h6, and there's a big hole for White to, big hole for Black to plug in that this bishop has left, and this bishop used to basically defend these 4 important squares on the board, actually, himself standing on g7 with the support of the knight and the king. And now suddenly bishop h6 is actually a problem. And in fact, g5, I think, is the move here, because even if h6, bishop h6 wins the exchange. And you can also play f takes g6, f takes g6, and at some point the queen will be too strong to like actually just put itself there. And here, I'm not sure, but I think I might predict bishop takes g5, h takes g5, queen g5 check. That's my idea. Bishop takes d5, and then you also have this check at some point. So king goes here, and then you can also give this check because this pawn is pinned. Let's really quickly look at the other game. No French defense, and again, Black is trying to hammer down this pawn. Massive exchanges, and Black enjoys a comfortable development and a bishop pair. So, and also White's pawn structure, if you look at, White has these Black has these 2 pawn islands, whereas White has these 3 pawn islands. So these 2 pawns are isolated, and this pawn will basically become a part of the attack. Okay, interesting. So Black really solves White's one of the problems for White. But still, with the bishop pair, I think should be able to make use of it. And if takes, there is this attack on the a3 pawn. And we have a new game. Multiple moves have been played. Let's see, e4, c6. Another Karo Khan, but this time with f3, the fantasy variation. An exchange. We see a sacrifice, bishop takes f7. And White is actually better with that bishop takes f7. Which is really interesting. Although White cannot castle because it goes into check, and the other way there's still two pieces, and it still has to go through check. So white is still looking for a nice move around here. Well, we'll go back here, seeing the very interesting position where bishop takes, h takes, and knight g7 has been played. The idea for white can be to put this rook on g3 and ask questions to this knight. The queen might come back, so you might want to stop that first, but there's no way to stop that. So another way has to be found out, or maybe maybe just take this e7 pawn that is hanging with this bishop. So you really start asking questions to this placement of this bishop, as it cannot actually go anywhere else. You take, and then you force maybe a queen move, and then you can probably play f6, or maybe f6. No f6 right away actually, because queen takes is bad. So I think takes goes here, and then maybe f6. That's another idea. Let's go back to this position. Very interesting actually. Where let me take a real look at this opening with another French defense. Ton of French defenses. Oh yeah, so we saw it somewhere till here, and white is almost back after the deficit, and white actually gives up an exchange, which it'll definitely get back. Or is it a tactic? So rook takes b1 check, Zwischenzug, knight takes b1. We're expecting it, and it's on the board. Bishop takes c6, queen takes c6. Very interesting. And now there's two pieces for a rook, and black needs to justify this extra queen. No, I'm sorry, not the extra queen. Black needs to justify how this rook and this pawn is better for these two pieces. And I think like swapping the queens here really helps black, because this rook just sits behind the passed pawn, and then if the knight moves away, you can start pushing it. Now bishop d3 maybe. Again, knight d2 is another move, because you can never play queen d1. Sorry, queen b1, but queen b2 is still a move. Let's go back with wild things happening here after queen h6, queen takes c3, f6. Black is better. Black just is also up a few pieces of material. Now the question is, if e takes f6, rook f3 is there. So rook f3, rook g3 are the only two moves that white really wants. So maybe queen g5 is another move, and this has grown really low on time. Queen takes f6 has been played, so no ideas of queen g5. And with 32 seconds on the clock, black really needs to find a plan from here, and I think rook a e8, and then going maybe oop, and that seems to be a blunder after king h6. This is mate, so rook takes back with check, and also this falls really quickly after. That is up a few material. Is there another way to play this? If this check is actually made, so it has to be played. Black in big trouble after king h8. Assume queen takes d7. It's on the board with rook e8, queen g4. And exchanging a pair of queens is not really interesting. Black is trying to bide his time. Maybe rook f7? Rook f7 is better. Okay. And here king g8 is important. Not really now. Maybe rook f8 check? Still, I would still go for rook f8 check, but now rook g8. Rook g8 seems nice. White lost on time. Black lost on time. Okay, let's take a look at this. Very interesting game. Now with black actually better and has explained the extra rook with the additional 3 pawns. So rook plus 3 pawns against 2 knights is just devastating. Let's look at this. Oh, this has been all right. A new game. Knight f3, knight f6. King's Indian attack, and after takes e6. White asks, black asks a question: how do you intend to defend that c5 pawn? And white says I don't, because if bishop takes, I think knight e5 is a nice threat, although it's only defended once, but then it suddenly is attacked thrice with this exit attack from the bishop on g2 coming in really, really strong. And here black has been able to convert that extra rook into a checkmate. Interesting. And this is for the lead. We're only 50 minutes into the first arena, and there's still a few, and at least an hour more worth of games left. So let's look at this. See, it's the English with a very interesting move order. And white gaining a huge amount of space advantage, as you can see here, with these castling king side, with this bishop probably coming to b2, queen c2, and the rook's coming to the center, and black plays h6, a prophylactic move. Not really sure what the idea is. Probably to stop bishop g5, but bishop d5 anyways is met with h6 because bishop h5 and you can play g4. But here h3 from white itself, asking the question to this bishop, like which of these squares is that you actually want to go back to. And maybe queen d7 and castle queenside is another idea that I would suggest, maybe. Just because we do want to see a bloodbath at this point. King h2 very nicely supporting this pawn twice from this sneaky attack by this battery of the queen and bishop. Let's go check the other games. Where a c3 move has been seen. Very interesting. e5. And actually giving up the queen for a large attack, but there's no attack and black sits comfortably. So this game is definitely a win by black. Let's look at this. After bishop takes c5, bishop d2 was played. Hold on. Queen a4, queen a5 was played, and queen takes c4, bishop, and then there's this battery here, but which doesn't do a lot because this is defended twice. And then also e3, bishop e3 are always ideas. And I assume there's knight a4 in the air. I think another game has started. Let's take a look at this. It's a Sicilian with queen takes d4 and castling queenside. And then playing a4 is really interesting. Black really has this attack, but it's difficult because there's a lot of pieces that are defending this. So there's this knight is being defended by 3 pieces, and suddenly this has been blundered. I think that causes piece drop. Otherwise, white was doing really well because again, h4, h5 were incoming. Sorry, h4, h5 were incoming whenever black chose to castle. And if black stays in the center, again, you just take. Now, at some point, I mean, you put the knight here, and then you put this knight here, and then you bring this bishop here, and then you start attacking things. But now it's just lost because takes, and suddenly there's a lot of pressure here. Okay, maybe some chances of counterplay, but f takes e6, and I'm against the same, asking the same question. What is it that you have to show for the extra piece that I have? Oh wow, this game ended really quickly. Let's go back and see what happened here. This was the extra. Yes, well, black had the extra queen. So that's definitely done. Let's look at this. White almost having half the time of black. I'm sorry, black. White almost having double the time of black, and really cruising with a little advantage. And not a lot of ideas for black to go on. King still needs to choose which way to castle, and the knight a4 is still imminent, giving black the bishop pair. I'm sorry, giving white the bishop pair. And let's take a look at this. We have b5. Did we look at this game before? Okay, we have taken a look at this game before, and black chose to go g5, knight d2, h5, knight takes. Again, multiple exchanges, and there's a pawn storm headed this king's way. And here, again, this white knight sitting really nicely and forking this queen and bishop. So one of the likely variations is takes and takes. This bishop was actually a really active piece attacking this h3 pawn, so an exchange would actually be favoring white at this point. This knight is like tied to the defense of this whole pawn structure. So b7, because this bishop again will drop back and still keep an eye on this b7 pawn, which doesn't let this knight move. So this rook is temporarily out of the game, whereas white can just play rook a2 and bring the rook back in or something. So black need to think before they go and break, and now just bishop b7. I don't see a reason why not to. Bishop b7, bishop b7, bishop g2, and in fact bishop b7, and if the rook moves, bishop a6, winning 2 pawns. In fact, not even bishop a6, ba6, even stronger, I guess. I'm not sure. Maybe bishop a6, but I think ba6 is better. ba6, queen a4, just asking too many questions to black king. Not really, but okay. Still queen a4, because you can anyway play bishop. ba6. All right, 21 seconds for black. I think we'll stick to this. 21 seconds for black. 3.5 minutes or 3.25 minutes for white, and the king in the center, with white basically getting a queen, but it's locked behind behind the enemy lines. White really needs to use one of these bishops to basically get the queen out. Also, black just getting forked. Interesting position again. And rook c8. Okay, let's quickly take a look at this. 3 seconds on the clock. I don't think black can do a lot. Rook c8, ba5, knight d4, bishop e3, maybe? Oh, but bishop takes. Okay, so bishop takes e4, queen takes e4, bishop e3. Still fine. I still think it's okay, because how do you... Okay, but what about this? Now I think knight d6 is being threatened. So knight b5, maybe? Knight b5 seems a move. Okay. And yet, knight d6 doesn't really work, because queen has to take. Now what, rook ac1? Is there something that I'm missing? Okay, fd1, okay. Takes. Nice. I mean, it's 2 rooks for a queen. 2 rooks and a piece for a queen, which is like more than compensation, actually. And King's on the walk. Ah, okay. Maybe this. I don't know. I want a knight here, and then it's just so beautiful. So maybe knight here, here. But it's only if black doesn't make a move. And this I don't really like. Again, I really wanted the knight to actually get here, but the knight stops. So the question is, what exactly is white threatening? And suddenly it seems to be go away from the clutches. Blunders have been made. And I think this is bad because king here takes and this loses. This drops and king here takes, goes here, takes, and this drops. And suddenly one of the two rooks is actually being dropped. Oop oop. And it's probably resigned. Blunders. Mega blunders coming in. Knight e3, f e3, and resigns. White winning this game after okay, that was checkmate. Interesting. Okay, we have all new games, I guess, at this point. And we'll do a really quick overview of all the games starting from this. A d4, d5, and moving a piece twice. Not really interesting. But okay, exchanging the dark squared bishop. Black really taking asking the questions about this really disfigured pawn on f4 and the pawn structure being really awkward for white now. I mean, d takes, okay, with c5 the d4 pawn is really off, and then I think at some point the knight jumps in, and this knight jumps in too very quickly. Right, let's take a look at the other game. We have c4, e6, and then c5, d5, c5, very interesting, and then the white showing both the bishops, putting the queen on c2, black trying to block the whole center, and now the whole center is locked, and really this bishop suddenly, which was actually on a beautiful diagonal, is suddenly on a bad square and running into a pawn chain, and rather another pawn really quickly, so it'll be running into a chain of pawns, a pawn chain actually. And after e5, knight f8, that's a very prophylactic move. e4, like hemming in, and like white was really hoping here for an en passant, but like just knight d6, plain and simple. h4, f5, and we're starting to see a little blood bath on both the sides. It's going to be a problem because basically black will start putting pieces. I'm sorry, black will start putting pieces around here somehow, and suddenly all the pieces that white has are on the queen side, whereas black can almost very likely bring all the pieces in towards the attack. It's still 0-0, but we'll see how this goes. Let's look at the next game. Let's start from the top. e4, c5, and again white giving up a pawn, but basically having a large space advantage, and suddenly it's sacrificing this, but there was a checkmate there, and I think now okay, e takes, if gf6, again you have this, and the queen enters. It's devastating for black right now. After queen h6, or even better. And we'll see. This game should be really short after this. Let's take a look at this. Seems really equal. Okay, here bishop d3, bishop d7, knight e5, knight d4, takes. Still equal, right? The question is that how exactly does white exploit this whole position? In fact, this was really quick. Let's see how white finished this game. After king g7, queen h6 check, king g8, knight f6 checkmate. This knight blocks this queen blocks this diagonal, and this knight gives a check and also blocks that. Beautiful work again. I think this is beautiful opening prep again seen. Let's close this. And we have a new game with a little bit of an exchange variation coming in with c4, no number 697. Very interesting again. I intend to take a little bit of break. a4 has been played. Let's look at this game really quickly and then I'll really take a little bit of break. Okay, so after knight e4, queen e8 was played. Subtle moves. Rook a8, h6, queen e2, queen g6 has been played. Not a lot of swivel in the body yet. We'll see where it goes from here. Okay, a4, queen takes e5. I think rook a3 is a move. I really like rook a3 maybe, and then maybe knight e2 at some point and rook g3. But I'll probably start with knight e2 first now because again you have this covered and you do not want to leave your rook undefended. I think still rook g3 still makes sense, but knight e2 is good. Or can be played maybe. There's another idea of knight b5, and then you're actually trying to go in from this way, and you're forking. And in fact, knight b5 if takes, I think here. I think that's another idea. So knight b5, bishop takes b5, rook c7. And now I ask you the question: what exactly is happening here with the bishop, with an extra bishop? How do you intend to defend mate? So that was another question, but knight e2 has been played, giving away a little bit of advantage to black because black can practically start with c5 and start attacking, like basically go on with these passers. Like trying to make it difficult, but now I think I would take an exchange and just take on c7 and be really happy. I mean, because you're basically giving away your passer and giving me another free pawn. So pawns doubling for yourself and also me winning a pawn. I'm really happy. Plus my rook on the 7th rank is just beautiful. This game seems very tight. There's a bunch of pawns in the center, clogging almost everything. The center, 3 out of 4 squares of the center are blocked with either pawns or pieces. This bishop still seems a little bad. These 2 bishops are the ones that will cause some interesting questions to be asked. And then we also have this very interesting there's too many squares again, and then we basically have to see what happens on either of these files. So we have 3 games going on at this point. h6 has been played. Hold on, let's go back. Okay, hold on. We did see till bishop takes c5, c4, a3, bishop g5, and h6. Interesting. So the idea is to basically like remove the bishop from the pin, but it's also okay. The question right now lies is that what exactly is white's plan? Does white plan to castle, play queen c2, and then put the rooks here? So put the rooks basically on these 2, which is e1 and d1, or put the rooks both on c1 and d1, and then play from there. So that's the question. Probably c1 and d1 sounds a little better. And bishop f4, e5. I'm sorry, bishop f4 has been played defending the e5 pawn. But then knight g6, bishop g3, defending this pawn again. That probably is the idea. Another question that I would like to ask is that can I play b6, bishop b7, and then maybe at some point put the knight back here and go to f5, or just directly go to f5. Okay, but this pawn seems to be lost. But queen e2 defense. So is this pawn is being attacked thrice, and defended only twice. So let's see if we can get different color. Yeah, defended only twice, attacked thrice. What's the idea? That's a question. Let's see. Things have massively simplified here, where it's almost equal, but the white rook is passive and white has around 30 seconds on the clock, whereas black enjoys a nice lead of 2 minutes, 2 whole extra minutes. And the question that black's king is asking is that I just want to go to h3, h2. What are you going to do to stop me? I think there's not a lot. The question still basically is that how exactly, so does black make progress yet? Do you exchange these pieces, or do you go rook b5, taking this pawn? That is one other question. But here I'm going to take a little break, and we'll be back in this short moment of time. Till then, enjoy the games. Well, here we see our first draw by agreement. Let's go back. There are games going on, but let's look at the one that we have right in front of us. Let's see. So what's the progress that we have seen from here? Okay, so here castle kingside takes, and suddenly after queen d4, the engine doesn't really like the idea. What exactly was the move here? Was it takes? I really need to figure out. Maybe rook cf3? But then why to run into a pin? So that's another question. Or just take. You cannot take, obviously. So you have to find this rook cf3, maybe. Not sure. And let's look at this. And here black chose to resign. Interesting. Because they lost a piece somewhere. After a really tense game, black I just blundered. That is real sad. Just blundered a free knight, and then it was difficult to actually come back. Right. And this has been won by resignation. Okay, so ton of results coming in. Let's look at the standings really quickly. We have one player at 15, two players at 12, and then the rest of them at 6 and 5. Let's go back to the games. Let's take a look at this. It's a Grunfeld. Striking in the center. Hold on. So the engine doesn't seem to like this, but a4, e5, takes. I think the move here is to take, maybe? I'm not sure. Is there a tactic somewhere? And it's back to equal. So let's go back to games. Let's take a look at this. We have Rui Lopez. Or with the bishop b4. h3 bishop b4. Okay. Castle kingside. g5. Bishop. Interesting stuff, actually. Knight h5. White enjoys a little advantage because of this ruptured structure. But with this, White gives back the ruptured structure itself. And now it's suddenly equal. The engine doesn't seem to prefer anyone. Let's look at this. Another English with a very interesting twist this time. Basically a couple of exchanges on the square f6. Pair of knights being swapped. And equal material after 14 moves. White enjoys a little slight advantage and some pressure on the b7 square through the x-ray of c6. Similar material, but I think White has a little bit more of a solid king than usual. Let's go back to this. We did see till I think we did see it till some place. But anyhow, castle king side. Yep, a4, e5. Right. And then knight takes d3, queen e7. Not a lot of progress has been made here. What are the ideas again? So this bishop is still behind. So this knight may require to come somewhere around here. That can be one possibility. Not around here though. But then this bishop, activating this bishop on f5 can be one question. Let's take a look at the next one, where White has tripled isolated pawns. Black has given up a pawn, I guess. And I still think there's merit in queen takes g4, queen h6 maybe. And then queen g3. Because there's no checks, right? And then also bishop g4 is very interesting because takes. But I still think there was this idea of queen g4 takes, and then you also have this really nice sly move. At some point, asking the question to the queen, where exactly do you want to go? And if queen goes back, you can always play this right here, like finding, like making sure that like you take these squares away from the queen, and maybe queen f3 then, and then you still have like these like stupid checks here and there, and with no way of coming back because of this bishop. So there were like things that like white could go into like, in some kind of crazy stuff. I'm sorry, black could go into some kind of crazy stuff. Let's look at this. Okay, so almost a very crazy game with rook d8, queen f3, and swapping a pair of rooks. And suddenly, black's better with this fork right here. Black is down a piece temporarily, but as soon as the king moves, this knight on c3 falls. Let's go back to this position. And here, an exchange of knights on e4, and suddenly this knight on d6 is a monster, which threatens multiple pieces. If somehow white is able to exchange this bishop, I would actually sack this and maybe try start going in here. That is one possibility. Maybe. Because see this rook is out of the game as of yet. Maybe doubling might help, but this rook is out of the game. Let's take a look at this. Bishop takes g4 has been played, and bishop b3. So white basically biding their own time and actually starting to put pressure on this f7 pawn with 3 attackers. Idea being bishop takes f7, bishop takes f7, rook takes f7, queen takes f7, check. Winning the rook and pawn in the process for a bishop. Let's take a look here. What has happened? Bishop f3 has been played, takes. Rook b1 has been played, and queen f5 has been played. So now the question is, do you want to take here and queen takes back, and then do you want to play, or there is something else that white can like force, black can force here. So oh, f3, g3. This is so difficult to see. g3, because then you have this check. So beautiful. So beautiful. Just winning the rook. So, I'm sorry, not done g3, g6. g6, so beautiful. Also a little difficult to see. But g6, winning it right away. Like, pretty much right at the same time. g6, that's it. Because there's no way the queen stays on this diagonal. Oh, beautiful. Anyhow, and maybe g3, yes, so the queen goes here, and then you have to somehow play something else. Maybe s6 then. So you basically deter the queen from this diagonal. And then, so I think g6, f6 was the move. Anyhow, let's go back. Let's see what has happened here. So White's rook has entered on the 7th rank. Black is threatening to take on e1 and also offering us an exchange of queens. So takes, and then what next is the question. But is that blunderous? I think it's resigned. Black white just letting the rook fall. Just easy resign. Let's go to the next one. Okay, and takes, rook e8, b4 takes. You have to find precise moves here. And queen c2 is probably blundered because takes, and it's 2v2 versus a 3v2, which is very likely a draw. Right, so we have got some results right here. Let's take a look at this. And the queens did come off the board after, so we did see this. White has actually undoubled his pawns. And I don't know. So attacked thrice, defended twice. And with less than 10 seconds on the clock, is king g6 a move here? Bishop h3 has been played. Bishop takes, or just takes here first. And then suddenly king h2, king goes here, and then you ask the question, what exactly are you intending to do? You have a new game, e4, c6, and ton of Karakans with exchanging and black picking up a pawn. Seems to be really okay for black right now, with black intending to play bishop c4, knight e7, castle kingside, or just castle queenside, king b8. So that can also be played. Both ways, I think it's completely fine. If black castles queenside, white castles kingside, we will actually see a pawn race or a pawn storm from both sides. Let's go back to this position after, yeah, so after bishop h3, rook f3 was played. Massive exchanges. Massive exchanges on the f3 square. Now white might just win that pawn. And then king takes f3, yes. So white has an additional 2 pawns and two passers, actually. Giving up a pawn is not really interesting, and now suddenly it's 1 passer versus 2 passers. And I think if you exchange the rooks, the question then becomes, what exactly do you play there? White still has 2 passers, so he can always go h4, g5. No, not really right now, but you can go h4, rook a1 maybe. So h4, and you hide the king. So you basically want to hide the king behind these two. And now the king never comes out. So now the king never comes out of behind this pawn shield, and you always just push 1 step at a time. The king moves here, you always have this check. But if the king doesn't move, oop, and now you, I think, rook g1. Rook g1 is a move. Rook g1 is a move, and then you have to find the Lucena. Yep, you have to find the Philidor, I guess. So rook g1, rook a2, rook g4 check, king here, and then I think you cut the king off completely, or you play the rook here. Yep, you play the rook here, you move your king to h8, and you ask the question to white, what exactly do you have? Black playing on 4 seconds with an instructive endgame course at this point. The question still lies, what exactly does black have to what exactly is black's idea, and how exactly does white go from here? We have really good questions. I think we also need to move to different games again. Let's go from here. A bunch of moves have been played, and after white giving a bunch of checks, white has picked up 2 pawns, 3 pawns, and now is just going to push those into oblivion. And it seems to be a draw. This is why I need to learn endgames. You basically put the rook on e6, I guess, and you never let the king pass. So you stop the king from any way aggressing. So rook a6, rook a7 is also a move, but I think rook a6 is maybe an idea. I'm not sure. I think we have table bases at this point. I can go on and analyze this, but just playing here, there's no way white can actually make progress, and this is going to go for a 50 move draw with black to move, and now rook g5, finding the critical variation, giving a check and building the bridge, and suddenly white is out of like moves. Even if rook f8, rook f8 is met with king g7, and suddenly you have no way of guarding the g1 square. It's just time to resign. Resignation incoming. Okay, maybe not. But in arenas, it's easier to just resign and go on for the next one because it is a little difficult to go on and like to get like be hopeful and actually, but you basically want to play as many games as possible. So you really want to resign and go ahead when you know it's basically dead lost. And here I think there's a mate in one with this game ending really nicely. And this was a draw. This was draw with 3-4 repetition. That's it. We do have, let's look at the standings really quickly. With the 16, 15, and 13. The top three clearly away from the rest of our teams. Let's look at what the games that are going on. I think we see a Sicilian. And very interesting ton of events with a knight on g4 upon an e5. Excuse me, upon an e5. Let's look at the last game too. An e4 c6. It's a ton of Caracan, a ton of Sicilians, and a ton of no Frenches actually. French defenses. Okay, the queen landing on f5. 2 minor pieces each side. One pawn, a pair of pawns has been swapped. And I think queen d2, maybe? Yes, queen d2? Okay, queen b3, actually. A nicer move, queen b3, threatening queen takes b7. And is it the poison pawn? I don't really think so. I think queen b7, rook b8, queen c6, rook b6, queen a4. How do you... Nope. Right, so both the players can actually choose to castle each side. The question is which player actually chooses to castle where. b5 has been played. b5, a very interesting move. No idea how it's going to be seen. It seems pretty equal. I think castle, king side. Both sides castle the same side. Pretty similar pawn structure. And pawns on each side. Swap a couple of pieces and we'll see from that. Okay, let's look at this. Couple of moves have been made. So the bishop has come out. And there has been an exchange of a pair of minor pieces, I guess, and a pair of rooks. Another pair of minor pieces with an imbalance in the game, being a knight for a bishop, and then a pair of extra pawns for black, which is very interesting. So, and the question is, what exactly does black play here? Because this knight on f3 can cause problems if this king ever ends up on h2 or g1. And then there's this really nice fork. The other question is that if what happens with queen e3? Queen e3, that's another very interesting question to ask black. Moving on to the next position. I think we saw till here queen e2 has been played, and after queen b6, c3, castle kingside, h3, and here what is the move that gives black the advantage? Is it knight f2? I'm not sure. Might be one of those, but black playing really safe. And after f5, sorry, g4 f5. It seems like black's king, even after castling, is not really happy with the structure it has in front of it itself. Whereas the white king seems to be completely safe only because there's no rooks x-raying this file. Right, so let's go back a couple of moves. And we see mass exchanges again with b5, a4 being played, both players castling on the same side, and black trying to launch a minority attack. And there is a mate in 2, and I think we did see it till here, and queen g3 was played, and here after queen e3, knight c2, queen d2, knight b4, bishop b1. A mate in 2 was missed, and a very interesting mate in 2, I guess, was this check. I'm sorry. Was this really nice? Rook takes h3, king g1, or king g2, and then queen h2 mate. But instead, queen g5 was played, and now the king defends, and suddenly blundering a piece, black. That's not a little. And we see after knight g7, knight b3 has been played. And now the question really lies, when exactly does white want to push this? Also, what is the future of this bishop? Does it go on g2, or does like white play one of these moves and get this bishop out here? Because this diagonal is really juicy, especially if white gets to play e6 and just sack a pawn. I mean, this pawn, like defending this pawn throughout, will be very difficult. Whereas if white gets to play this bishop is really bad suddenly. After e6, if black gets to play e6, these two pawns block this bishop, but like this bishop basically has almost nothing to play for, unless the rook goes out and the bishop goes on f1. And then there is this. Okay, black chose to play d6 and actually exchange. Maybe I'll play bishop d7 and thread this really lousy tactic of rook d8. But lousy tactics sometimes work. After ed6, bishop d7, rook d8. Let's go on to the next game really quickly, and I think we did see it till here, where there have been mass exchanges again on the b file, and bishop d4, rook b1 check, rook takes b1. The rook enters on the 8th rank, and the question is, who exactly is better? And I think this should fizzle out to a draw. All the time changes might be a problem. What happened here? And actually white was able to not actually find a win, but black lost on time. Very interesting set up again. What happened here? And oh my god. And here just blundering a full rook after being a pawn up. Okay, let's look at this. Are there more games going on? Not really. Okay, we'll see. And at this point, and it's still 20 more minutes in this arena left. Let's quickly take a look at the standings that I have right here. We have 16, 16, 15, and Darkseid is really catching up. So Darkseid really needs to win a few more games to put these two people into problem. So let's go back. There are 2 more games going on. Let's take a look at this though. I did get to play e6, and suddenly this whole f7 square is really weak, and I would actually like to so hold on. I would really like to take there and actually put my knight somewhere on f7, and then play h4, h5, and ask the question, what exactly do you have for the defense once I start rummaging here with, I'm sorry, knight f7, h4, h5, takes, and then play here. And suddenly I have all of these, like, so something like this with f3, queen h2, and I have this whole attack. And this pawn also plays a very crucial role of not letting this king escape. So I might also argue that bishop g7, rook g1, I'm sorry, bishop g2, rook g1, and then maybe playing this somewhat like bishop f3, and then sacking here is an idea. I'm not sure. But we'll see. And now this knight is actually loaded with this bishop's discovery at all the points. Let's take a look at this. We'll see another Caro-Kann fantasy variation. And wow. That seems to be very interesting with just a few minutes into the clock. White seems to have a humongous advantage, which he seems to have thrown away. I think you would take, isn't it? You take and castles. And I think I was in a very similar situation against Famous a couple of years ago, where I had to choose whether to take, but then knight here. And you have around 4.5 minutes on your clock. I mean, think. I mean, I would still suggest about it. Knight here and the castle kingside, and now this is threatening. But would you play there? And you have to really find a solution. Maybe something else can be thought of there. I think knight here. I'm not sure. There's definitely some sort of an idea. Maybe knight here. I don't know. Because if you take, I can just take back with the queen and I'm out and about. But here queen c8 check was played, and after takes, with the same number of major and minor pieces, but white is actually a couple of pawns up, which should be easy enough to, and actually with around 4.5 minutes on the clock should be easy enough to convert. Let's go back. So a couple of things have happened really quickly here. Rook d5, and black suddenly has wriggled out of the whole attack that was possible with this really nice tactic. So I would really like to show it again with taking here, and once white takes back, there's this nice knight fork that wins back the queen. And now black is simply is black up any material? So there's 3 and 2 5 pawns. Oh wow, interesting. And now you take back, and you have to very solidly find another move, which is actually rook d3 and h6. Rook d3 and h6 is the move here. So you give a check, the king moves, and you play h6. I think, yep, and you pick up this bishop. Sorry, yeah, the king cannot move here. This knight. Now there's supposed to be a check somewhere, no? Rook e3? Does rook e3 work? Rook d3 works. Okay. It just takes. And black simply enjoys an edge with 3 against 6. So black is cleared 3 pawns up with beautiful pawns, I think, which can march down. The rook has entered the 7th rank, but there's a lot going on with these checks coming in, and these knights can be really tricky with less than 6 seconds on the clock. What happened here? This game was this game was really quick, with just being completely aggressive. By just being completely aggressive, an exchange and 2 pawns up, so difficult to defend. Both these games have ended. Let's look at what's going on. Let's look at the standings really quickly. And with clear first, we have Klutzenstein, and a 5-point lead over the second and the third place. The real question is who basically makes into the third place right now out of these 3. So let's look at the games with less than 16 minutes on the clock. Let's look at what's happening here with really nice French defense. And again, black was a pawn up and suddenly ended up 2 pawns down. And an open king with white's king just really cozy behind the pawns, the f2, g2, and h2 pawns. And then white also enjoys the full control, or will slowly enjoy the full control of the c file. More interestingly, the question now is, if rook ac1, do I play bishop c5 or something of that sort? I think that is one idea. And then the other idea that I really had was, do I play something like maybe queen c3, and I think just losing an exchange here after bishop c5, that is it. It's time to hang the boots. GG. For this one, let's go back to the games. Really wild game again here. Karo Khan, multiple Karo Khans this game, in this event, and black taking the poison pawn. Rook b1 incoming. Sorry, rook fb1 incoming, I guess. Not rook ab1, I'm not really sure. Okay. Also, very interestingly, black seems to have taken these 2 pawns, but these 2 pieces are still underdeveloped. And after knight f6, black really is intending to go out and play like one of these moves. But after rook fc1, they have to find a safe haven for the queen first, so very likely queen b4. Since this oh, and is bishop b7 a move? I'm sorry, bishop c7 a move? Just, but the queen actually traces back its steps from this side. But I think I might actually be able to play something of this sort. Not really sure, but I kind of like it. Is there an idea any way of knight c5 and rook ab1? Because again, takes. I'm really happy, and then rook ab1, and then I can actually put the bishop here, and let's say even if you take, so exchanges here, and then rook ab1. I mean, start with knight c5 first, and then you take. And then I ask you the question, what exactly do you have in mind? And if takes, castles, rook ab1. And also I have this queen h5 idea. But okay, bishop takes. Interesting. It was a long thing. It was a minute and 2 seconds, I think, for white. The bishop takes g6. Very interesting. a3 has been played. And now I do not know how exactly white chooses to go into or break apart white's king, although I'm sorry, white breaks apart black's king, because after here I think just king d7 or king e7, I'm not sure. King d7 is better, I think. King d7 is just okay, because you can always just put both the rooks here and you can ask the question, what exactly is happening? And bishop e7, king d7, rook c8, rook ac8, rook ad8, something of that sort. You can always play f6, or you can put the bishop here. So any of these moves really works for black right now. Black is just slowly cruising. Let's look at another game. Just started. Actually, most of it has been played. Let's see. And a very weird opening, and with actually multiple exchanges, ending up with white having 6 pawns, black having 7, but white having the bishop pair. Slight advantage, I think, to black. But here with white knocking on black's door with h4, h5 and asking, what exactly are you intending to do after I attack a knight with h5? Then I go on to plonk my bishop on h6 maybe, potentially winning the exchange, or even in fact like I think h5, knight g7. Let's say if white has the move here, h5, knight g7, bishop h6 here, takes, check, king goes here, mate. So there is an idea. I mean, definitely an idea, but what exactly does white play here? I think there is, after this, there is this knight f4. So white has to maybe play bishop e3 first before pushing h5. There are multiple ideas again. Then there's also yep, and then after bishop e3, actually, black can play d4, and suddenly this bishop becomes alive. This pawn is really okay. Maybe this knight can also sit at some point on here. So bishop e3 also doesn't work because knight takes here. So there's a lot of things going on with the wrong. Sorry, a lot of things going wrong with white's position. White has a nice idea if black makes a little mistake, makes a little passive moves such as these. It's too difficult. But okay, black chooses to simplify the situation. Now I think anyway going d4 maybe is nice. I don't know. Maybe d4, bishop d5, queen d6, and then just exchanging this bishop at some point. Not right away because both I think this square is really safe. Also move the rook away, start the king rock if the king needs to go away. But h4, h5, h6, very solid, really solid. Let's look at this. What happened here? Okay, yes. And black ended up with an open king and also losing an exchange. And slowly, what? Okay. And after enjoying such a big advantage for such a long time, white ended up blundering a real pawn fork. I think that's it. What happens here? Yep. And a couple of long things were white here, and I think like finding the critical moment is really important. With things over a minute, 3 things over a minute actually is really interesting. 3 things over a minute is too long for black to actually, for white to actually like spend 3 minutes in a 5-minute game. Just costs a lot of time. Let's look at this part. Okay, so h6 was played. Not a lot of moves have been made after queen g3, and I think now just white really starts with f4, g5, and starts putting pressure on this. King side. I mean, I'm not really sure f4 is a move here, but I think f4 g5 can be an idea. And this game ended. Okay, this game ended in a nice draw. I'm sorry, nice win from black. There was a queen, and there's no way to stop that. Right, 2 more games joined in. I think we were already watching this one. Another game. A lot of it has been played really quickly. Let's see. A French exchange, an exchange French with this g5, g4, which takes. And white really happy with the amount of pieces aimed towards black king. And then the other idea is maybe to put one knight on e5 and put knight d f3. Then maybe exploit once a knight on g8 moves. I'm sorry, f8 moves. Exploit the g6 or the f6. Sorry, e6 square. Black offering a queen exchange. Interesting point. I think this game is rushing towards its end. Let's see. Okay, they exchanged queens and into rook pawn ending. Black with equal number of pawns. this game fairly equal right now. But white having 3 times the time as black. And with a comfortable minute lead on the clock, I think white should be able to get something out of this. Although there's a little sad pawn structure. So the rook on f1 was hanging, rook e1 has been played, the rook fe1 has been played, and rook played to e7. Interesting. Okay, maybe bishop f7 is still an idea. And now king h7, king h7, rook g5. Is king h7, rook g5 a move? Because bishop takes g5, bishop takes g5, rook takes g5, rook takes g5. Still better. I think rook g5 was still a move. But rook e4 has been played, trying to take the pawn on d4. Rook takes f7. Has black just succumbed to pressure? I mean, what's the move here? That's another question. Is it rook takes g5 or rook takes d4? And with 11 seconds on the clock, black seems to be having problems, and rook takes g5 again. A free pawn. No point to rush. There's no perpetuals again. Rook f1 check doesn't really matter. King g2. I still need to see compensation for what exactly is being played. Rook g5 has been played. Rook dg5 coming soon, I guess. Oh, okay. What if takes? Okay, something like takes. No. The question is, how exactly do you deter that bishop? I think maybe rook b8 was an option. So you takes, and then you have an outside passer. So rook b1 now. Rook b1, just takes. Rook b1 now and then takes. Maybe. Okay. Are we leaving that pawn? Rook e5? This game was drawn after 3-fold repetition. I think black was better. That's what it says. Interesting. Just want to take a look at this. What exactly happens here? No, the other rook, yes. Okay, good. And now rook b3. I still think rook b3 is the move. Takes, and you have an outside passer. Rook 3, 4? I don't know. Why do I want to attack bishop? King f4. I think king f4 is bad. Nice. But now rook e6. Rook e6, king g3. I mean, rook e6, rook d4, king g3. Okay. Rook a5? Rook a5. Rook a5. I don't know. Rook e5. Rook e5, and then rook e6. Or this. Yes. Okay. Rook a5. Takes, bishop e2. And what do you have? And black can just claim fortress. Yep. And the next black move will actually be bishop b5, winning that h5 pawn. Black just claims the fortress. And now it's a 2-result game. Unless somehow black blunders a whole bishop. Okay, this ended with a checkmate in the middle of the board. Games are ending really quickly. We have a minute of the arena left, with our top 3 really running away. Really running away with this. Still don't see a reason. Still don't see exactly what. Why was it missed? Let's take. I mean, there's no way you win, even if you win the pawn, because a rook bishop versus king and rook is always a draw, and the pawn never leaves a6 actually. So it's playable. It's playable. It's definitely playable. Oop, and a pawn move. We see a pawn move. Maybe chances. Maybe chances. So okay, king d2. And we have our final. We have the top 3 finalists who will make it to the next part of the qualifiers, which is the round robin. We have another arena in a week's time. So if you played in this one, or if you haven't played in this one, play the next one. It'll be fun. Thank you, and thank you for watching, and good night, everyone.